The kingdom of my divine will in the midst of creatures. Book of Heaven, Volume 34, Part 8. January 4th, 1937. How each creature from the beginning of his existence holds an act of divine will, wanted and decided, which creates him, nurtures him, forms him. Feast of Jesus in each act of the creature that does his will. I am in the arms of the divine Fiat, which surrounds me with its light, and recalls upon my poor existence its continuous act of its will, but an act that gives me life, that loves me, without which I could not live, nor find anyone who really loves me. Therefore, it wants me all intent on receiving this act of life of its will, that I may not expose it to not fulfilling what it wants to do upon me, and to hindering its love. In fact, love and divine will compete with each other. One cannot be without the other. Now, while I was under this act of the Fiat, my beloved Jesus, with a goodness that I cannot express, all tenderness, clasped me to his divine heart and told me, "My blessed daughter, my will is everything for the creature. Without it, he could not even have life. You must know that each single creature, from the beginning of his existence, holds an act of my will, wanted and decided, which carries with itself an intense act of love toward him or her who begin their life. See, then, how the creation of the creature begins. Under the empire of an act of love and of divine will, wanted with all the fullness of knowledge, so much so that these two acts, love and divine will, are equipped with all the graces of power, wisdom, sanctity, and beauty, from which the creature will live and carry out his life. Now, having formed its first wanted act, it never moves away from upon the creature. It creates him, forms him, nurtures him, carries out its operating act, in order to strengthen him in its wanted act. So my will and my love run in each human act. They make themselves life, support, defense, refuge, and surrounding it with their power, they nourish this life. My love embraces it and keeps it clasped to its bosom. My will surrounds it from all sides, more than a home, to keep its wanted act safe, which my Fiat pronounced, in order to call the creature into existence. Now, this act, wanted by our Fiat, is the greatest, the most powerful act, and that which most glorifies our divine being, so much so that not even the heavens can contain it or comprehend it. Does it seem trivial to you that our will runs in each active creature and says to him, not with words, but with facts, "I am yours, at your disposal. Oh, please recognize me. I am life of yours, act of yours. If you recognize me, you will give me your little requital of love. And though little, I want it, I demand it, to find refreshment from my continuous crafting and the life I lay down for you. And my love so as not to remain behind my fiat, feels the irresistible need to run in order to love each active creature, saying to him in each of his acts, I love you, and love me. Moreover, everything is in whether this act, wanted by my fiat, is recognized. Then it makes unheard of prodigies of sanctity and of beauty, which shall form the most beautiful ornaments for the celestial fatherland, and the most refulgent lives that resemble their Creator. In fact, our will knows not how to make beings that do not resemble it. The first thing it casts into them is the likeness to us, because it wants to find itself in the operating act it carries out in the creature. Otherwise it would say, he is not like me, hence he does not belong to me. If, on the other hand, it is not recognized and not loved, then the creature forms the sorrow of my volition, even though it runs in each act of the creature. And if it did not run, it would take his life. Therefore, in its sorrow, it feels its divine life rejected, the sanctity it wants to unfold hindered, and the seas of graces that were to inundate him, the beauty that was to cover him, being shut inside its wanted act. So my will can say, there is no sorrow similar to my sorrow. More so, since there was no good it did not want to give him. There is no act of his in which I have not placed of my own. Therefore, my daughter, be attentive. Think that each act of yours hangs upon a divine will that envelops it, forms it, and gives it life. And because it loves you, it wants you to know the life it gives you, and this as confirmation of its acts in you. So content yourself with dying, rather than hindering this act, wanted by my will from the very beginning of your existence. How beautiful it is to be able to say, I am will of God, because it has done everything in me. It created me, it formed me, and will carry me in its arms of light into the celestial regions, as victory and triumph of the omnipotent Fiat and of its love. After this my mind continued to swim in the sea of the Fiat, and oh, how beautiful it was to see it, standing at attention. And as I breathed, palpitated, loved, so did it invest my breath in order to form its divine breath, the divine heartbeat. And upon my little love, it formed its sea of love. And it delighted so much as to anxiously await my little human acts in order to form its divine crafting. And my beloved Jesus celebrated the triumph, the work of the Fiat in my little soul, and all goodness told me, daughter of my volition, how I delight in seeing that my divine will places something of its own in the act of the creature. And since her act is small, it delights in dissolving it within its great act, which has no boundaries. And as though triumphant, it says, I have won. The victory is mine. And I, in each act of my will in her, make my feast. Now you must know that the satisfaction of our Supreme Being in seeing the little human act dissolved and identified, as if it had lost its life to give life to our life, is so great that we elevate this act, which we called our act, unto the height of our eternal act. Eternity, the whole of it, draws around and surrounds this act, and everything that has been done and will be done within the round of it identifies itself with this act in such a way that all eternity belongs to this act, and this act remains in the bosom of the Eternal One, and forms one more feast for our Supreme Being, therefore one more feast for the whole of heaven, and help, strength, and defense for the whole earth. The creature doing our will, our making her live in it, is the only satisfaction that we feel. It is the true requital that we receive for having created the creation. It is a contest of love between creator and creature. It is for us to move in order to give ever new surprises of graces for her to receive. Therefore, if the creature runs into our fiat to give it free field of action, in our emphasis of love we say, the creature is repaying us for everything we have done. After all, did we not make all things, and the very creature, so that she would do our will in everything? As she does this, it is enough for us, even if she did nothing else. And if this is enough for us, more so should it be enough for them, doing and living always in our will. By this, the creature is ours, and we are fully hers. And do you think it is trivial for her to be able to say, God is mine, all mine, nor can he escape me, because his omnipotent fiat keeps him clasped to me? Fiat. January 10th, 1937. Intertwinement between the divine will and the human. Tenderness of Jesus for one who lives in his will, unto feeling happy for having cried and suffered. The refuge of the works of God. I feel I am under the waves of the eternal fiat, and my poor mind runs always to be invested, and the waves run to invest me. And this investing of each other forms the most beautiful rest on both sides. But while I was running, my highest good Jesus, making me pause, told me, my daughter, how beautiful is the race of my fiat with the daughter of my divine will. An intertwinement takes place between the two. In all created things, in which runs my volition, one can see the little thread of the human will intertwining everything, and my fiat, intertwining with it, renders it extendable in all of its acts. It seems it is not content if it does not see this thread of the human will in the heavens, in the sun, in everything. It is a contest that takes place. The divine will wants to invest the human, and the human will wants to let itself be invested. Surprised, I said, But how can it be that the human will, so small, can extend in all created things, and together with the Fiat, embrace the great vastness of all creation? And my sweet Jesus added, My daughter, do not be marveled. Since all things were created for the creature, it was right and decorous that the soul and the human will be able to invest and embrace everything, exercise lordship over everything, and possess greater marvels than those of the very creation. More so, when the creature is united with my will, where can she not reach then? She cannot embrace our immensity, because to no one is it given to be able to embrace it. But of everything that was made for her, as long as she remains in our Fiat, she was given by us the right to be able to enter everywhere, to embrace everything, and to make our works her own. My Fiat would not be able to tolerate it. It would feel its purpose being snatched away if it did not find within its works the human will, which, wanting to live together with it, recognizes them as its works, and recognizes how much the Fiat has loved it, and how it wants to be loved. Therefore, my will is all eyes, almost on the lookout, to see when the creature is about to do a little act, an act of love, a breath, a heartbeat, in order to invest it with the power of its Fiat, and say to her, I have done my works for you, and you must operate for me. Therefore, what you have done is mine. It is my right, just as my works are your right. These are the laws of the living in my will. Yours and mine cease on both sides. They form one single act and possess the same goods. But this is not all. For one who lives in our Fiat, this thread of the human will runs within my conception, in my birth, in my baby tears, in my pains. Listen to this, something so very tender. When this thread of the human will intertwines with mine, and mine with it, investing all the acts and pains of your Jesus, I feel the joy and the purpose of being conceived and born. I feel happy for having cried for love of the creature. Even more, my tears stop on my face, and seeing that the human volition pearls them with itself, kisses them, adores them, loves them, oh, how happy and victorious I feel that my tears and pains have conquered the human will, as I feel it flow in all my acts, and even in my very death. So, just as there is nothing we have not done for love of creatures, in the same way, there is nothing in which my will does not call the human will. And to be more sure, it intertwines it with itself and with its works. There is no danger it might leave it behind. And with unspeakable emphasis of love, it says to it, My will is yours. My works are yours. Recognize them. Love them. Do not stop. Run. Fly. Let nothing escape you. You would lose a right in what you do not know or possess, and you would give me the sorrow that in my will I would not find yours intertwined within my works, and would feel my purpose snatched away, betrayed in my love, and like a father who, while having children, does not find them in his works, in his possessions, in his house, as they remain far away, and lead a life of poverty, and unworthy of so great a father. This is why the longing, the sighs, the yearnings of my Fiat are incessant. It would move heaven and earth. It would spare nothing, as long as the creature would live in intimacy with it, and be possessor of its same goods. Moreover, everything we have done, both in creation and in redemption, is all an act of giving itself to man. They hang upon his head, but are as though suspended, unable to give themselves, because he does not know them and does not call them and does not love them, so as to enclose them in his soul and receive so great a good. Now, one who possesses our will, our works, the whole of my life that I carried out down here, finds the refuge, the space, the room in which to be able to continue my life, my works, and the soul acquires the practicing art and converts into her own nature my works and my life. So, this creature is the refuge of our sanctity, of our love, and the life of our will. And when our love, unable to contain itself, wants to give into excesses, we take refuge in her and give vent to our love, and we pour such charisms of graces that heaven and earth are stupefied, and trembling adore our divine will operating in the creature. Fiat. January 24th, 1937. For one who lives in it, the divine will forms the repeater of its life and of its love, and forms and extends in her the whole creation and everything that Jesus did. How it will give her a new name, calling her my Fiat. I am at the mercy of the supreme Fiat that wants to always give me of its own, to keep me occupied, and have always something to do for my poor soul. And if it detects any little void that is not its will, with an admirable and inimitable activity, it sees what is missing in me of all its acts it did for love of creatures, and all festive it impresses it in my soul, giving me a tiny little lesson. I remained surprised, and my always lovable Jesus, visiting his little daughter, told me, "My good daughter, do not be marveled. The love of my will is exuberant, but with highest wisdom, because for those who live in its will, it wants to make works worthy of it, the little repeaters of its life, of its love, and hide in them the sanctity and multiplicity of its works. It wants to continue its creative work, It wants to form, repeat, and extend the whole creation, and even more in one who lives in its will. Listen to where my love reaches. My fiat created the creation, and in each created thing it placed a value, a love, and a distinct office, from which to produce a distinct good for the creatures. So much so that the heavens possess a value, a love, and an office fully unique. The sun, the wind, the sea possess another and perform distinct offices, and so with all created things. Now listen to what my will does for one who lives in it. Anything she does belongs to it. Therefore, in one act, it encloses the value, the love, and the office that the heavens do, and gives to the creature the love and the value of the heavens. In another act, it pronounces its fiat, and encloses in it the value, the love it had in creating the sun, and makes it do the office of sun. In another act, it pronounces its fiat, and encloses in it the value, the love it had in creating the sun, and makes it do the office of sun. In another, it encloses the value of the wind, its ruling love, and pronouncing its fiat, it makes that act do the office of wind. In another, it encloses the value of the sea, and pronouncing its fiat, it makes it do the office of the sea, and gives it the virtue to always murmur, love, love, love. In sum, there is not one act that the creature does in which it does not delight in pronouncing its fiat, and in one it encloses the value of the air, in another the sweet singing of the birds, the bleating of the lambs, in another the beauty of the flowers. And if the acts of the creature do not reach the extension of the work of creation, it makes use of her heartbeat, of her breath, of the rapidity of her blood circulating in her veins, and it animates everything with its fiat, forming in her the complete creation. And when it has completed everything of what it did in creation for love of the creatures, it lays its dominion over it, and with its creative power, it preserves everything. It maintains the order of the new creation it has formed in the acts of the creature, and it feels so loved and glorified, because it does not find a creation without reason, without a will, and without life, but it finds the power of a reason, of a will, and life, which voluntarily has undergone the power of its fiat inside its acts, its creative virtue, its very divine life, its ruling and untiring love. In a word, the creature has let it make of her, even of her breath and of her acts, whatever it wanted. My blessed daughter, keep listening to me. Let me give vent to my love. I can no longer contain it. I want to tell you where my love reaches, and where it can reach, and what it can do for one who lives in my fiat. Do you think that my will was satisfied and said enough, because it has enclosed the value, the love, and the different offices of all creation in the creature that lives as though identified with it from one single will? No, no, you must know that I came upon earth, and in the ardor of my love, I offered my life, my pains, and my very death, in order to purchase back my divine will for the good of creatures, who with so much ingratitude had rejected it, and therefore lost it. So, my life served as the disbursement of the price that was needed in order to buy it back and give it in possession to my children. Hence, a God was needed to be able to pay a sufficient price in order to purchase a divine will. See then how certain it is that the kingdom of my will shall come, because the purchase was made by me. Now, my will, after having formed the order of creation with all the sumptuousness and sublimeness of its creative work, as the creature keeps repeating her acts, in one act it pronounces its fiat and forms in it my life, enclosing the value of it. In another, it pronounces its fiat and encloses in her pains the value of my pains. It pronounces its fiat over her tears and places in them the value of mine. Its fiat continues in her works, in her steps, in her heartbeat, and encloses in them the value of my works, of my steps, and of my love. There is not one prayer or act, even natural, that she does, in which it does not enclose the value of my acts. So in one who lives in my will, I feel my life being repeated, and she redoubles the price in order to purchase my divine will for the good of the human generations. It can be said that there is a contest between she and I to see who can give more, so that my will may be possessed again by the human family. But this is not all yet. If it does not do fulfilled works, it is not content. To the value of creation and redemption it has enclosed in the soul, it adds on with an incredible love. It encloses in her the celestial fatherland, and makes its glory, its joys, its eternal beatitudes resound in her as the seal and confirmation of the creative and redemptive work it has formed in her. After this, in order to be more sure, it creates in her its heartbeat, its breath. It makes its life, its light, circulate more than blood, and as though triumphant, it gives her a new name, calling her my Fiat. This name is the most beautiful name, which will make all heaven smile, and the whole of hell tremble. A name which I cannot give other than to one who lives in my will, and has let me do in her whatever I want. My daughter, what can my omnipotent Fiat not do or give? It reaches such extent as to give its own rights over its own power, over its love, over its justice. It incorporates with itself the will of the creature, and says to her, "Be attentive. I want nothing else from you other than for you to do what I do. Therefore it is necessary that you remain always with me, and I with you." Fiat. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 34, Part 8. Fiat.